You ready? Okay, here we are. All right, this is the regular meeting of the Woodbridge Conservation Commission. It's June 20th, 2019. As always, we start with public comments, and as almost always, there is nobody here for public comments. So right along to review and approve the minutes of our May regular meeting. I had circulated those most recently. Are there any discussions? Actually,
Betsy does the minutes, except if Betsy's not there, then I do the minutes.
Okay.
and then we'll figure that out.
I make a
then.
motion.
And then we'll figure that out.
Right, I will second the motion to approve the minutes from May. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Abstentions? Okay. Next up is to refocus on our 2019 open space plan draft. This is a document that we've been working on for the last few months, adding some sections and adjusting wording in others. And everybody had been assigned some homework. I will start with my homework. One of my tasks was to fill in the gap of a natural resource inventory. And what I figured out is probably let's leverage some prior work. So I went to the Alice Newton Street and Fitzgerald Tract maintenance plan that Yale had put together about 10 years ago or so. And in that document, they had a table of animals that they had observed. So I brought that information into it. And also, they had a piece of software that was put together by the National Park Service, I believe. And based upon your area of the country and your terrain and habitats, it would spit out a list of potential creatures that you'd be able to find.
It's a big list.
And so I included that in this document as well. And those two were specific on animals, so mammals, amphibians, reptiles, what have you. What it didn't seem to include was plants. So I started putting together plants, mostly trees, and indicating whether or not they're invasive or not. And again, that material was lifted from that Alice Newton Street Park plan. And I'd like to expand upon that a bit more, do a little more research on my end, and come up with some new sources for material. So that was my homework. I got an email from Lauren that said she had got her homework done. So you want to talk a little bit about yours, Lauren?
Oh, sure, I have to access it, but yes, just
Okay.
a second. Did I email it to you?
You did.
Okay, good.
You airdropped it.
I did?
Have you revised that and added it to
Do you know when I
the
emailed it?
current?
I didn't have time to put Lauren's part into it yet.
Okay, but you put yours in?
I put mine in. Mine
Okay,
is
great.
about halfway through the document if you were trying to
Yeah, I have on my
find it.
phone.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
It's a couple pages of tables. So look for
I
lots
think
of
mine
rectangles.
had, I can't find it, but I think it had to do with the deadlines for the
It was for the grants.
Yeah, so it's emailed, and I will email it, I can email it to everybody, but it's the, like, DEEP is not accepting applications right now, but the Connecticut Farm Viability Grant Program, we can apply for November 2019. Recreational Trails Program, there's a deadline July 26, 2019.
Yeah, we probably won't make that one.
It's soon. North American Wetlands Conservation Act, there's a U.S. standard grants, February and July deadline. I get the feeling that that's every February and every July.
Okay.
And U.S. small grants, October deadline. Forest Legacy Program has a deadline in January of 2020. And the USDA Agricultural Commission Conservation and Easement Program, Conservation Easement Program has a rolling deadline. And when I start, it's very interesting when you start to really read into these because it lines up right exactly with what we're talking about in here.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and then they say it's like, there's so many people applying for these grants, they make you feel like, but it's still worth. National Park Service has a deadline of August 1st. And something was February 2020. Open Space and Watershed might be February 2020.
Okay.
But I can email it, the more cohesive, coherent all the coast. Once I find the email.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. Leland had informed me that he had done his homework as well. I didn't get it. He was going to present it tonight, but at the last minute he wasn't able to attend this evening. So we'll wait to hear from Leland at our next meeting. Julie, you had some homework.
Well, I did, except, here's my feedback, and I'll do more. But when I went on, so my homework was to, fill in, the ordinances that have to do with, so compile a list of zoning regulations applicable to open space and compile a list of zoning regulations, ordinance affecting open space and zoning regulations affecting open space. And the problem is, it's a 145-page document for Woodbridge, and to me, everything affected it. So I didn't know how to, I tried to copy and paste it and then sort of extrapolate some, and of course I couldn't figure out how to do that. But I can do that, but it's really a lot. I don't know how to narrow that down because, it talks about the condition of what the condition of the land would be and the slope and this, and all of it affects everything. So unless you put that 145-page document in here, which I know you don't want to do, I really don't know
Can you just
how
put a link?
much.
Is it online?
Do the general things like the setbacks and the acreage that we need for lots and stuff like that. That all affects zoning, doesn't it? I mean, you have to have 2 acres lots for residential, acre and a half, whatever it is, all that kind of stuff. Setbacks from wetlands, things like that.
The
Does that
length of the access roads, all kinds of things were in there.
No,
that
there's
were-
so much, yeah.
I'm just
it's where you
afraid to
wanna
leave
start,
anything
right?
out.
There's so many different things, yeah. I get your point.
I was kind of hoping that there would be.
Well, like I looked at Oxford, and there's like 5 bullet points, and that's all they have, that sort of
Yeah.
are really relevant. But these literally, like everything, you could potentially use, that document, the zoning document that's
The zoning
145.
regulations.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
everything.
it's
is
huge.
Well, I was kind of
potentially-
hoping that there would be maybe certain sections of
Even
that you could just say.
I tried to do that. There were like 3 or 4 that I could reference, but even that, then I went back in and I'm like, well, that's also important. Well, that's also, and then I really couldn't find anything that was specifically like for wildlife, that would specifically say,
Like, I think things such as designated buffers or setbacks that are designated of a designation to leave open space. I think in the zoning there has to be a 10-foot buffer on a property line
Right,
and for
right.
encroachment.
Okay. Well, I mean,
That's
I can
more of
continue
building
to do it.
encroachment
Am I allowed
than-
to continue to do it even though?
Absolutely, you can continue to
All right,
volunteer.
I mean, I can, what I can do is I can at least reference the parts that I thought were
Yeah.
really relevant.
And
like
if you
more
wanted to contact me, we could review it and maybe condense it down
Yeah.
a bit further
All right,
and help focus it.
okay.
But, so it sounds like there was nothing glaring
Yeah,
that was
and
like,
I
this is a
came-
section about open space and we can reference that in our open space
I
plan.
came to talk to the lady here and she wasn't here. So I have to come back and talk to her because I was a little late doing it. The woman downstairs, Christine?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she knows zoning back.
Yeah.
Like the back of her hand, so
So
she'd probably
I-
be able to walk you through it really easily.
Yeah, and maybe give me more pertinent information.
Mhm.
So I'll do that when she's back.
And she's also fairly keen when it comes to open space as well, because she attends some of the same conferences that
Oh,
we go
good,
to as
okay.
well.
All right,
So
good. Okay. So I'll continue to do that if that's okay.
I would love that. We'll always take extra help. Frank, I know you and I were supposed to get together to talk about protection and acquisition, but
We haven't lately.
we have
no.
not done that.
No. There's a couple things going on with acquisitions. We can talk about it though.
Okay. And Tracy and Karen, I think you guys managed to not get any homework from that meeting back in February. All right. I would like us to continue working on the open space plan moving forward.
Did you write this whole plan?
It's developed as the commission has
Have
over
you-
the last few years.
But you've done it?
I've been the one
Yeah.
putting it all together, the aggregator.
Yeah, I think it looks good. I like
And certainly it's built upon prior work as well. So the 2003 open space plan is what we started with, and then just kind of lifted all the wording out of that, put it into some other sections, and now we have instead of a scanned version of a printed document, which is what we had before, now we have a document that we could actually edit in a word processor.
Jason, I had something,
Yes.
on the definition of open space, I noticed that there's a lot of stuff, but I thought maybe we could add, like, provides habitat for protected and endangered species and promotes biodiversity, because I didn't see anything in there about the actual, that part of it, where it takes, in the definition of open space.
So in that list of
In
numbered,
that list,
numbered
yeah,
list there?
up till through 9, I don't see anything where it actually talks about, there's a lot about recreation, historic sites, and there's not that much about the habitat for the wildlife. I think maybe we could add a line there,
What page was that on?
possibly.
It's right at the beginning, right after the introduction.
Where we have definition of open space, right in the beginning.
I like that. I think it's a good catch that has been omitted. Protection of habitat.
open space helps.
Because we talk about natural streams and water supplies. I think protection of habitat goes along with that, but calling it out specifically.
Yeah, I think so, and but it does promote biodiversity and all that, however we want to term that, we should put something in there about that.
Okay.
Biodiversity, I feel like, is a more 2019 term also, like maybe 2003. I don't feel like we heard that as much as we hear it now.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I will include something about that.
Yeah, I think that'd be okay.
All right. Any other thoughts on the current draft of the open space plan? Certainly, if you haven't had a chance to digest it and you have some thoughts later, you can email me.
I was confused about that. It looked like you had thought about this and put it there, but under funding, you listed something and then you said, well, this isn't really a funding, this is something that will help us get funding.
One of the funding sources.
So it seemed like maybe that should be somewhere else, but I hadn't figured out where that should be, but it just seemed kind of odd. Here, let's see.
Was it the conservation fund or?
Private? Maybe it was private.
under the private section.
Yeah. And it's-
Oh, right, I see what you're talking about.
Funding.
So
Add
under
language.
private, I had some language that says, these are typically consulting firms better leveraged to assist with seeking funding from other sources, thus are more a resource for assistance than a funding source.
I don't know. Just whatever.
Yeah.
And then is the Parks Association a potential funding source?
Well, I think, and maybe that's why, I'm trying to remember why this language was included here. I think it's because, for example, the Woodbridge Land Trust and the Woodbridge Parks Association are their own organizations, and they go after grants as well.
They do.
But they also would partner with the town
Mm-hmm.
to collaborate and form a bigger funding source.
Okay.
So,
maybe a section on partners?
yeah,
Collaborative partners, and then we could put, it's not.
yeah. It was a odd one to put together. You're right. Like Connecticut Farmland Trust, they can also act as almost like a middleman in terms of funding. You know what? That could be your homework.
Okay.
Is to look at these private funding sources, go to their websites and see if maybe there's a better category for them, or maybe their descriptions need to get revised because they're
The trust
Their
for,
function has changed. So
trust
those
for
are-
public land could be a partner. A lot of some of those could also be a partner with the land trust and others.
Got it.
So Tracy, that'll be your homework.
So everything from private down.
Just check out that section in the private funding sources.
How is the conservation fund private?
It didn't fit in.
It just didn't fit within state and federal. That's part of my thinking. Got it. All right.
Yep.
I'm all over it.
Excellent. These are good comments. I like this. Any other thoughts?
We were going to clarify that habit.
Are you thinking the habitat of conservation?
Yeah,
concern?
habitat of conservation.
Yeah, I think we'll come back around to the rating system.
Okay,
at our
yeah, because
next
what I
meeting.
saw about that was I looked at some of that, and it was mostly how to prevent the degradation of it, what I saw in research on that, of the habitat.
Yeah.
But we can come back and do that more specifically later, I guess. Okay.
And that's one that's sort of been in the back of my brain, is we got to nail that down, because that's one of the things that I feel is holding up the rating system from moving forward, is getting a clear definition of habitat of conservation concern.
Mhm.
So I think we'll come back around to that at our next meeting.
Under your Woodbridge Greenway, so we want to list who these agencies are. It says a successful greenway is established through a partnership between land trust, conservation groups, blah, blah, blah. We have such an ongoing partnership. The Conservation Commission has worked with all these agencies. Who are these agencies? Because we haven't named specific ones. Do we want to name specific ones, or do we want to change that wording to be more general?
I think maybe that sentence is meant to refer back to the first sentence there that talks about partnerships between land trust, conservation groups, municipalities, utilities, individuals, and state agencies.
Has partnered, I don't know. I can look at that sentence too if you like.
Yeah.
I don't know if there were anyone specific you wanted to mention, like the West River.
Watershed Coalition.
Yeah, or is it just too
Oh, yeah.
easier just to keep it broad?
I would. I'm tempted to keep it broad right now.
Yeah, I agree.
I think back when the Greenway was established, so I see in May 2012, and May 2002, 12 miles of the Greenway received official designation.
I feel like that was a big deal, because that's what sort of enabled to finish the loop.
Yeah, and getting a designation is a nice feather
That
in the
was a
cap
big deal
for the
right
town,
there,
for sure.
just getting the designation.
Yeah, you want to work on the language? I see sort of uneven language at the beginning
Yeah.
of that section.
Yeah, I'll just take a stab and see what you think.
Okay.
Once this is completed, how long is it good until you have to do it again?
We decide as a commission when we want to revise it. The current open space plan was from 2017.
Okay.
I felt it was worthy to bring it back up again and fine tune it a bit more and expand some of the sections. Partially based upon what the plan of conservation and development indicated. So
Right.
try to get the open space plan updated and fully in alignment
Consistent
with the,
with that.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. Anything else on that for this evening? I think we all still have some lingering homework to work on. All right. Next on the agenda is trails and trail maintenance. So I have an update around this. I've had several meetings now with the Land Trust, members of the Land Trust, members of the Parks Association, to talk about trails in town and maintenance and who's responsible for what, and having consensus about the maintenance, whether it's color of the trailblazes, the size of the trailblazes, when maintenance happens and how aggressive the maintenance is. So there is slowly coming together a trail guidebook that all three organizations are co-authoring. And all three, town, land trust, and the Parks Association, will use as a guide moving forward for when those of us that are drafting it right now are no longer part of the process, that it can get passed along to somebody else so there's some consistency. And I think everybody involved is finding it to be a good process.
We have a trail master again, or are we gonna arrange something like that, or?
We
Or
don't have
is
a
it gonna
trail
come out in the
master.
plan?
I think in lieu of a trail master, this is sort of what we're working on is fragmenting the responsibilities. So instead of just a single trail master that's monitoring all the trails just by himself and roping in volunteers as needed.
Okay. The
It's sort
land
of
trust
splitting
does a
it
lot
up.
of work already on their own properties, that's
Yep.
why.
As the
so-
Parks Association does
I-
too at Alice Newton Street Park here. They do a great
Okay.
job. And I think probably in another 2 more meetings, we'll have a solid draft for circulation. Fingers crossed.
Okay.
Certain trails are better than others, that's for sure.
Yes, and that's part of the point of this document, is so that it's clear of when things happen on trails. It's another document, much like the open space plan. It's a living document that once it's drafted, that's not the end-all be-all. The document itself says it's a joint collaboration that is reviewed annually for updates and clarifications. But it's coming along pretty well.
Oh, good, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and Betsy's been involved with it as well. So, like I said, fingers crossed, another month or two, and there'll be a nice, not a thick document. We're angling for something small, like less than 10 pages. It does reference a bigger document. The National Park Service has a trail that crosses like 5 states, up in Wisconsin and down into Illinois and across to Ohio and into Pennsylvania. I think it's this whole trail network. And it seemed like a good model because that was a trail that crossed multiple boundaries.
Yeah.
We have trails that cross multiple boundaries in terms of ownership: town, land trust, and parks association. So what they did at the national level, we're kind of picking and choosing and identifying some salient points for us in our little microcosm, but also referring back to that massive document. We don't want to have whole tables that talk about a slope of 15% requires a trail at this angle and switchbacks.
Makes sense.
We don't need to put that in ours. We can just say refer to their work as needed.
Who's responsible for parking lots of the trails? Is the town, or is that like a club commission?
It depends.
Like Ellerslie?
Literally, it depends.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause that one needs a lot of work.
Yeah, and that's part of, actually, in the document, it
It's
talks
in the
about
doc-
trailheads.
Okay, great, yeah.
Yep. We've also been talking about if we decide to put trash cans at trailheads. That's a maintenance item. So who's responsible for maintaining it? So
Mhm.
that's the level of detail that we're going into.
Yeah, that's good.
But without creating a document that's so onerous that nobody will ever read it.
No.
Yeah.
Must be practical, right?
It does.
It's super practical to have it, for the trash cans, but it's better to have people bring their trash home.
Yeah. I
But-
agree.
Yep.
Unless it's at like the cornfield though, because then people just throw it away, you know what I mean?
Oh,
People
Yeah.
might just throw their stuff anyway.
Yeah, the more heavily
One or two
trafficked
places.
ones,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and that's kind of what we've been talking about is certain trails, as you know, because you're on them all the time, certain trails are more heavily trafficked and better maintained and probably need more resources in terms of parking lot maintenance, trash cans,
Right.
other things, and other trails are much more,
We don't need to encourage
Kind
it
of-
or have animals. If you have a trash can, it's like
Right.
Ellerslie where it's not
Mhm.
as frequent. It's just gonna add, it's just gonna cause animals to get into it.
Right.
It's just not gonna be helpful. It's gonna be, yeah.
right, so there's a lot of different things that, for something as simple as a trash can, there's a lot of different things.
Yeah, yeah,
should
you're
be
right.
thought about.
Right.
It's
And then it's like
government at work.
and then recyclables, and then people
Yeah.
go, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right,
It's-
100%.
It's a simple question and a very complicated answer.
You're
Of course.
absolutely right.
Another thing that will likely come out of this discussion is some actionable items on the town's side. So we'll, here at Conservation, probably have some action items coming out of the trail guidebook later this year. All right, next item on the agenda is an update on the 2019 trail walks. The most recent trail walk was back on June 1st or 2nd. It was that weekend. It was at Massaro. I was not there, but it was led by members of Massaro Community Farm, and they actually turned it into a bigger event. The trails was part of the day, but they had some other activities on the farm that day, and it's, from what I heard, was well attended, and they had a good turnout, and I believe the weather was pretty good that day too.
Now that's a
Yeah, it
trail
was
I
a
actually
nice
have
day.
not walked, because I have not thought to go there.
Yeah.
Did you go?
So is it just go
I
the
was
perimeter
fishing, I
of
was looking at my
the?
fishing.
It's
I was
so the
on-
Massaro Trail is open to the public.
It's nice.
It's just a short loop. It's about a mile loop total, so it's not a big walk. And where the parking lot is on the farm, you just go straight back to the woods, and there's a trailhead down there. You don't park down there, but you park up in the parking lot area of the farm, and you walk down to the trailhead. And it's a quick walk. You could probably do it in 30 minutes tops.
Yeah, that's great to know.
And it's definitely one of the lesser used trails
Yeah,
in town.
never.
I know Lelands is working on getting a trail walk, I think in September timeframe, and he had some geologists he was trying to rope in for an educational angle on trail walks. And do I have a list of other trails?
Might be fun to do a cornfield trail walk with all the gardens. Right now, it's fun to go there, see, kind of walk through where the gardens are.
And the rain has helped so much.
It's great, yeah.
It's like a jungle out there, right?
Yeah.
It is a jungle out there, it's a lot.
It feels like the
Like the
Amazon
rainforest.
right now.
A lot of places are flooded out.
I
Some
know,
trails,
I know. You have to wear boots.
I can't find I had a list of who was doing what. Maybe I'm thinking of last year's. So again, the idea of our trail walks this year is making them educational. So the Massaro Trail Walk was focusing on food and agriculture, talking about the gathering and then moving to agriculture. So that was a good setting to talk about food. Leland's plan is to talk about geology, and the idea is to have it over towards West Rock, which is one of the, obviously, clearly lots of rock that's in your face to talk about. And then birds, there was an ornithologist I think Leland might be working with as well.
We might be able to get somebody from New Haven Bird Club to do one of them.
Yeah.
I'll check.
That would be awesome. Yeah, so we're scaled back our number of trail walks this year. Hopefully going for quality over quantity this time around. All right, and the last item on the agenda. See, I knew this would move along pretty well tonight.
Wow.
Chairman's report. I have a letter here from the Autobahn Connecticut. You know, they came to our meeting back in March, I believe it was, and gave a presentation. And I ran into these same guys at the Massaro Spring Festival in May. Same guys that were here presenting, just happened to be at a tent at Massaro. And they have reached out to the high school to see what kind of partnership could be formed with Amity High School. And I know, Karen, you were going to do a little work. Have you had a chance to?
Well, I have a lot of ideas of where to put the plate. I just don't know where, actually I was going to ask you, like, how to get that in motion. You know what I mean? And I was going to I want to call them directly, but I wanted to talk to you first. You know what I mean?
Okay.
To make sure that I'm asking. I thought they did a great job, and I think that
I'm going to give you this.
I think we could really partner with them, and I think it's great. But I don't know how much, we should be doing that, or what, what I mean? So that was where it was. I mean, there's so many places that we could put bird boxes and, bat boxes and all those things out there, and there's so many, places that we can ask to help too. It's just a matter of how much we want to
Yeah.
On maintenance
involved in
again.
that. Yeah.
So the letter that is here is from Catherine Blake, who is the Bird Friendly Communities Manager. And they're inviting us to join up with the Urban Oasis program. And she actually has, I'll pass it around, but maps of the town of Woodbridge, speaking specifically about biodiversity, social opportunities, I'm guessing. Social meaning not human social, but animal social networks. I was going to make a joke about Twitter being an animal social, anyway. An animal social network. So yeah, I think maybe this might be the context.
Do we want to like formally dovetail with the Autobahn, or and really partner with them, or do we want to just make this sort of like a one-time thing, or do we, you know?
Are we
I
talking
think
about,
the
I guess the
issue-
beginning
I mean,
of
the
this was
problem-
it having a walk with
Like,
them?
you know, he was talking about if we do the bird boxes, somebody's going to have to, you know, be monitoring them and cleaning them out and things like that.
Yeah.
So that poses a whole nother, you know, I mean, I'm happy to, you
How
know.
about a trail walk with
Yeah.
them, where we could do an early morning bird walk like they've done in Orange, and just have, if there's an area in town.
Yeah,
that
we
would
could
be, and that could be
definitely
another
do that.
educational trail walk
Right.
some month.
So how much of involvement do we want to do with that, or do we do it, you know, I'm going to actually join personally. and
I think it's worth exploring the Urban Oasis program further, and if I can have you be the point of contact
Yeah,
with
sure.
that. Because there's a commitment to it,
Right.
I think we probably need to have a little more information and discussion before saying, absolutely, we're gonna definitely do this.
Well, I think what I also learned is that, you know, people go in strong and then people don't follow through, so it's like we want to be realistic.
Yes.
But we also, you know, maybe want to partner with them somehow, you know.
Yeah.
We could be a resource to them if they want to get to the trails and figure out where to put bird boxes, or, I mean,
All
I
right.
don't know.
So I'll
Were you,
pass.
you were here for that? Were you here for?
I need to form a committee or something if you want to do that. I mean, you know, it would take more than one person, I think, so we
Yeah.
really have to look into it
So,
first.
so let's explore it a little more, get a little more information about
I mean, the other thing is
scope.
that I could join that and then just, you know, figure it out and then ask you guys, you know, figure out what they need and ask just specifically, periodically, you know, the Conservation Committee to help us out. You know what I mean? As opposed to, do you know what I mean? Like, I'll figure out if I'm a member of that and then I can ask you guys. You know, that might be a better way to do it.
I think by doing a walk with them, we could help them spread their
Yeah.
word.
Well,
to-
I guess that more of the issue is that I think that we could really do a lot. We could help them a lot if we all pooled our resources. Like, I mean, if I asked certain people at the high school or where, you know, I think there's people that want to volunteer and want to help but don't know how. And so, you know, I
Okay.
think that maybe that could be my job to figure out specifically how can we help. And then how can we get that information to the people who need it? You know, maybe that'd be just make bird boxes
You
or,
might
Alright.
want to look into the high school and see if you can get some students to help you with it. You know, things like you're talking about.
well, like the Boy Scouts, they're always looking for projects to do, so,
So I'll have you be the point of contact on this,
okay.
and maybe for our next meeting, you can reach out to Autobahn and Catherine here and figure out what next steps there would be for us to move toward being part of the Urban Oasis program,
Okay. That's
just to
fine.
get a little more background and understanding of what our responsibilities would be with that and what resources they need.
Okay, so just get specifics to what they need, how we can help, and maybe how we could get some people to, you know, maybe they need people where you know, wherever
Right, yes,
volunteers,
you'll find
where we
out.
filter that to them.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job, so.
I have no other chairman report items to report, other than it's Lauren and Julie's last meeting. It's been great having you guys here.
It's been our pleasure.
We're on a mission.
Well, we're gonna miss you too.
And Lauren, you don't have to go to Coopop meetings anymore,
Oh,
unless you really want to.
I do like those meetings. I have to tell them that. Well, someone, figure it out.
But, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all the work
It's
you
been great
did,
having
Lauren.
you here.
Yeah, Julie.
Thank you.
On that note, motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody.